Let's go!
So, Tic Tacs is going through a little bit of controversy. Let's talk about it. I think there's some things that we can discuss in here. What's the controversy behind Tic Tacs? As I understand it, this is not going to be the War of the Lions version, which had a bit more content. It had, Final Fantasy 12 characters. It had some characters from the Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced games. Most of that stuff is not going to be in here. They also had some new classes. They're all, Dark Knight and Onion Knight. They're also not going to be in here. At least to me, I don't remember any of that stuff being like generationally defining. I liked War of the Lions because I could actually comprehend the story. That was the biggest thing. They had a new translation where you can actually comprehend the story. But in terms of like other changes and stuff, I don't really remember anything else. Like in War of the Lions, I wasn't freaking out about Balthier. So I'm curious. It's been a long time, man. I haven't played that since it came out on the PSP. It isn't a make it or break situation for me, but it is definitely unfortunate that a re-release of Tactics for a third time, technically outside of the mobile and the PSP versions, is not going to be like feature complete. That sucks, man. I get it. You can change between the old PS1 version and the modern version, the Evil East Chronicles version. I think that is disappointing. I think that is kind of like rough. War of the Lions had some funky slowdown. It was not perfect. Don't get me wrong. Granted, I'm still very much looking forward to it. I don't know the full breadth of all of the new features that are in the game because we haven't quite literally seen them yet. But I think having a full game like this with voice acting is a pretty big deal, man. That is going to be a pretty big difference in the overall quality of the game in terms of it being like a modern day game experience. So let's talk about it. Tactics is one of the greatest tactical RPGs ever made. To this day, fans praise its incredible storytelling and impressive customization. It's a masterpiece. Yeah. Okay, glazing. So when the director and his team started to work on a modern platform, they faced the tantalizing question: how do you make a masterpiece even better? Damn. All right. Little glazy. The answers can be found in the Evil East Chronicles. New voice acting, conversations, loads, quality of life features, autosave, battle speed, and more. We asked the director how his team approached the challenging update to a legendary game, especially as he was part of the development team. No lies detected in the first sentence. Granted, me playing Tactics also sent me down a spiral of playing a whole bunch of different tactical RPGs, TRPGs, on PlayStation in this time because there was a shit ton of them, dude. Years ago, certain circumstances led me to play the original Tactics. It was my first time playing the game since it released all those years ago, and I had to experience the brilliance all over again from its outstanding design that still holds up today even amongst modern games to its deep narrative. However, there was no way to play the game on current generation consoles, so that's why we started developing this title. What were the main areas to focus on when creating the enhanced version? The original game is 30 years old. No matter how good a game is, simply remastering or porting it would not be enough to convey the greatness of a new generation of players. Dude, this is wild. Like, can we just talk about this? You can have something as well known and as like PlayStation 1 classic as Final Fantasy Tactics, but it only takes 30 years. Right? Just 30 years for it to come back. We just needed the PSP version. Just give us the PSP version on PC. Our main focus was to keep everything that was great about the original, but also working to further improve the game to adapt the current era, revamping controls, UI, as well as adding full voice acting. Rather than having the game run on an emulator or produce the remaster remake, their approach was to reinvent it. Because the source code's gone. A reminder, chat. The source code for most PSP games, the source code for almost all PS1 games, that shit is toast. There was no reason to hold on to any of that stuff before the year 2010. Wide majority of these games, source code is absolutely lost because data space was way more expensive than it is nowadays. Preservation did not mean anything. Tactics is warmly regarded and highly requested by fans even after all this time. So why do you think that is? There's aspects of the game that are highly regarded to players, such as the in-depth character customization through the job system. That's me. Compelling narrative and corporatist political intrigue. To me, the gameplay, dude. The gameplay of Tactics, like setting up the fight and the job system, it was fucking peak. I love it. I think the reason that the game is so highly regarded is that it brings all these elements into harmony, the context of the Final Fantasy title. There have been lots of games released in tactical RPG subgenre, but Tactics stands one of a kind among them. This harmonization is why Tactics holds a lasting place in players' hearts rather than simply being another game among many. What was the biggest challenge you faced when creating Tactics and Evil East Chronicles? There was a number of major challenges, but all of them stem from the fact that the master data and source code from the game no longer existed, of course. This isn't to say that they were mishandled or poorly managed or anything like that. Keeping that kind of data wasn't normal. Yeah, there was no reason to. You could not keep a project in project files and just put hard drives in a, no, it's delete it and move on. Get rid of all of that material. You have the physical material, which likely goes to places, the original sketches and all that kind of stuff. Physical material, yes, but data, not valuable. Get rid of it. Like just move forward, you know? That continued all the way until, no shit, probably like early 2010s. In those days, we didn't have much of a sort of robust resource management tools that existed. On top of that, production workflow for a game was such that the Japanese version was produced first, and then we would create localized versions by overwriting data with that other languages, including English. There was also no such thing as online patches, updates, so unless there was a major reason to do something, once you made the game, that was it. So I think it's fair to say that developing the game without any master data or source code was the biggest challenge. They had to reverse engineer. There's a lovely story I've had from some friends of mine that made games. The Devil May Cry HD collection, chat, was reverse engineered. Getting that game to come back in some way will never be like one-to-one with what it was on PlayStation because there was no source code for DMC 1, 2, and 3. The developers, which were a few friends of mine, told me the horror stories of them quite literally reverse engineering Devil May Cry 1, 2, and 3 into an HD collection. Their source code was a used copy from GameStop. An astronomical amount of work. So how'd you solve that problem? By sheer force. Yep. That's all it takes. It just takes fucking manpower. If you want to like remake the way Tactics works as an entire game, here's what's arguably even crazier about this. Tactics took 9 months to make from what I recall. It was like about a 9 to 12 month development window. So they literally made the whole game, original Final Fantasy Tactics on PS1. They made the whole game in about like less than a year. Let's just throw out a general time frame. That's how long it took for old games to be made just because there wasn't that much assets, you know? There wasn't that many assets you need to make. This sheer force probably took years. Just re-engineering the game backwards and recompiling everything back together to work in the same way, no shit, likely took them 2.5 to 3 years. I would not be surprised. So we analyzed a number of existing versions of the game, reconstructed the programming of the original, but there were also times where we played the original game and worked it out just by feel. The entire process, result of cumulative hard work, from one hand working to implement new features. Behind the scenes work was similar to porting an old arcade game to the NES. Yeah, you have to make a whole new game. The staff who worked on the game were real lifesavers. I can't thank them enough. As you mentioned earlier, the game now features full voice acting and an updated script. Why did you want to add that to the experience? So nowadays, it's become the norm for games to have fully voiced dialogue. But when the original Final Fantasy Tactics was released, this wasn't the case. Of course, there are huge benefits to having voice acting in a game. It allows you to portray the feelings of the characters. So having the game be fully voiced was necessary. On the other hand, the dialogue in the original game was written to be read by the players. So just having it read up by a voice actor as it would have felt unnatural. So with the help from Matsuno, who wrote the script for the original game, we tweaked the dialogue to make it even better for voice. That's great. That's great. That's great. Tactics as a fully voiced experience is going to be kind of crazy to me, dude. So much of the Tactics experience is up here. I think we have kept the overall feel of the original intact while creating a more natural spoken dialogue, which offers even greater level of immersion. The original game on PS1, how difficult was it to update the visuals to capture the same feel? One of the things that was so great about the original game was the sprites for the characters, which were cute yet meticulously crafted. The visuals for the maps were also put together in a very striking way with textures models that had a kind of warmth to them. So for Final Fantasy Tactics, the Evil East, our aim was to improve them without losing those qualities. We increased the resolution while keeping the flashy effects at a minimum. We spent a long time tweaking this on-screen effects, and I think that the end product is something that preserves what made the original so special, while offering a fresh new take on Tactics. The interface was also given a redesign. The main reason is that we wanted players who are new to the game to play it. The game UI tends to change. Yeah, dude, Tactics on PS1 is not necessarily a game that is player beneficial, to be real. There's a bit of menu hell in Tactics 1, but that game and like how you play it and what you do is very old school, man. Like, and just understanding things. Most people, when they played it, did not even know that every time you strike the opponent, it would give you a percentage chance of your strike hitting. And it's on the screen. It's literally down there. It tells you 75% chance of success rate. And you just thought it was random. Like, it was literally there, like, the whole time. Game UI tends to change with the times, vary from platform to platform, even though that the design choices of the game itself are a factor. It's been a long time since Tactics came out. So it's only natural that the UI needs to be updated to modern standards. Our goal with these enhancements is to make the overall experience of the game design of Tactics a more pleasant one. So we started reconsidering any parts of the original UI that were particularly difficult to understand. We then undertook a complete overhaul of the UI, including adding new features that would feel more comfortable to modern players. Yeah, I feel it. Game features additional conversations too. What can fans expect from these, and why did you add them to the game? Additional conversations? 1,000%. I didn't know that was the case. They're adding dialogue to the game. 1,000% chat. Gift sub bet. Cloud and Aerith are going to have more dialogue because they almost have no dialogue. Them bringing the voice actors back was almost surprising to me, but Cloud and Aerith will 100% have more dialogue. Like I think they exchange 1 or 2 lines in the original game, and that's it. They'll definitely communicate a little bit more. But Suno, who wrote and directed the original game, has added a new character conversations for this title. And it's been a time since the game was released. Fans have shared a lot of requests in relation to the story. By making the game fully voiced, we have become able to convey the characters' emotions more accurately. And I think because of this, we have been able to explore them and their relationships with one another. Because of this, anybody who played the original game will be able to get to know characters even better, while players who are new to the game will be able to understand more story naturally in greater depth. Some of these conversations only take place under certain very specific conditions, so I hope that players try a lot of different things to discover them. Ooh, really? Unlocking Cloud is hard, if I recall. You literally have to make a time machine. There's a side quest involving, what's his name, Mustadio? The gun guy, but not the shitty gun guy, the friendly gun guy. You find a hidden robot, and that robot somehow connects to a time portal, and Cloud gets sucked in, and he just pops up. He's like, where the hell am I? Yeah, it's like a Mustadio quest with his dad. Worker 8, yeah, and then Worker 8 becomes playable. It's an interesting side quest, to say the least. Problem with it is that Cloud's a piece of shit. He's arguably like one of the worst classes in the whole goddamn game. They changed that in War of the Lions a lot, but I think they can push it forward more. In fact, I think it would be so much better if they just gave Cloud much better attacks, because most of Cloud's moves that he uses, they're not super FF7 adjacent. Some are, but a lot of them are like weird, where it's like, this feels like it was for a character that was not in here. The game does have a very memorable cast. Do you have any particular favorites? As mentioned, we made previous adjustments to some of the story content, which allow us to portray the inner workings of certain characters in a way that were there in the original game. The addition of voice acting also adds more emotion to every single line of dialogue. This has led to Gafgarion becoming one of my favorite characters. There are also some hidden branching dialogue options in some of the exchanges between Ramza and Gafgarion. So I hope that players will also look forward to that. Gafgarion was dude in the huge plate armor, and he had the big old white beard, right? Why did you let the focus on updating the original tactics rather than War of the Lions? Other members of the development team were not directly involved in War of the Lions, but I do believe that I and other members of the development team were not involved in War of the Lions, but I do believe that the content of the game did fully meet expectations for players at the time. Oh shit, I didn't know that. The original tactics development team didn't make War of the Lions? That paints a much different picture. So who did War of the Lions? Some other people. Hiroyuki Ito made it, the FF12 guy. So that's why. All right, so that's starting to make a lot more sense. You know, that could be an excuse. Don't get me wrong. It absolutely could be an excuse, but them admitting it and being like, yeah, that game was kind of made without our permission. Maybe it wasn't. Yeah, I don't even think Ito works at Square anymore. Their perspective is that they were doing the same shit that the game did when it first came out, which was crossing over with the other Final Fantasy at the time, which was 7. And they were just crossing over when the PSP game came out, because right around 2005, 2006, FF12 was the big thing. It makes perfect logistical sense, but them making changes or adjustments to their game probably rubbed them pretty wrong. However, as we look back at everything 30 years later during the creation of the game, we ask ourselves what our team, those who created those who made the original fucking game, could do to bring this game to a new generation of players. All right, no, this sounds personal. That sounds like that was some old beef. It was through considering this question that we came to the conclusion that the most appropriate path for us was to pay respect to the original game's existence that we made and recreate that the best way that we could. Fair enough. You know, it's your shit, dude. So did you consider adding elements from other tactics? We did, of course, consider the new jobs, abilities, and characters, including the jobs features in War of the Lions. However, the original version of Tactics was a complete game from a game design and a story perspective. So if we were to make major changes to our game that we made, it would be a loss not only for fans of the original, but those that, wow, oof, they're really digging in. Okay. With this in mind, our first step in reviving this to a new audience was to adhere to the original and put a spotlight on the original game that we made and the characters and their jobs, as well as the original gameplay experience that we made. There's a lot of ego in this release. Ego is one thing. It seems like in this span of time, it sounds like the original development team of Tactics was definitely upset. There was likely some pretty big beef. It was taken out of their hands and they weren't even asked. Like, I don't know, man. That's what it sounds like. It's extremely unprofessional. Yeah, is what it is. The development team were passionate when it came to bringing the experience as close to the original as possible. And as a result, we have recreated and used the original VFX and sound effects, something I hope fans will particularly enjoy as they play. So they like remade a whole bunch of stuff. The classic version of Tactics also included in the Evil East Chronicles is very cool, but why did you add this in? The classic version in Evil East Chronicles features the War of the Lions translation. Okay. And that's not changing the original script. Like the original script in Japan was fine. It's just that the translation was balls. Right? When we eventually read it in English, it was not good. The localization was the thing that got really improved in War of the Lions. Among fans of the original game, there will be those who believe the game doesn't need a lot of embellishment, to be honest. I felt this way about a number of remastered titles. There was no doubt in our minds, alongside the enhanced version, which is more in line with the current era and more accessible to newcomers, so we should also include a classic version that is based on the original build of the game. The classic version isn't just a direct reproduction of the original. However, we added some quality of life features as autosave, fixed a lot of bugs, allowed players to get the same feel as they did from the original, but to play completely on different platforms. Fans of the original game will be satisfied with the gameplay experience. Obviously, you're an expert on the game, so do you have any tips for people who can start about? Might seem quite difficult at first glance once you peel back the layers a little. You'll discover that the battle system is characteristic of the RPG. Essentially, if you return to the basics of RPG gameplay, you naturally be able to expand your horizons and gameplay. My first advice is related to character builds. Yes. So a reminder, chat, anybody that thinks this game looks cool or you give a shit or you didn't play Tactics back in the day, this shit got a lot of subsystems, and I'm curious how the new version will teach you. Problem that most people run into is that you just play it like a normal game for an hour or two, and then you hard wall. Like really hard. All your jobs that you're playing are gaining like AP or SP or some stat, right? And you could spend these points on like abilities and shit. You can make your job points more powerful by spending them. Most people don't realize that because the job points are just accumulating in the background. So you got to go into your job after the fight is over and spend your JP on all this shit. If you don't do that, your ass is literally going to have like 100 points of JP on Squire, and you never upgraded to Knight. You never upgraded the Archer to whatever the hell. You have to spend that shit, because if you don't, you get to the door to Trade City and they murder you. It's super important, and the game doesn't do a particularly good job at showing you that you have to go spend those points. So in Tactics, characters can take on a large number of different jobs that might seem a little complicated, but if you decide a particular goal before developing and customizing your characters, for instance, saying to yourself, I want this character to be a mage, but it makes it easier to grow and strengthen your characters. The game has a mechanic to help players with this, so please give it a try. Really? My second point relates to equipment. In Tactics, character job dictates what equipment you can use in the game itself. Outfitters tend to sell different pieces of equipment depending on what town you are in. I recommend regularly making sure all party members are outfitted with the best equipment and the formation you're using, as it will not only help strengthen your characters, but will also significantly reduce the difficulty of battles. The game includes a mechanic that will allow you to check at a glance what equipment is sold in which town from the world map. Oh, so you don't have to go into the little pub hub. That's cool. That's fine. A third piece of advice is to check on the statuses of enemy characters. Most enemy characters have certain jobs associated with them, equipped with items and abilities, just like characters in your party. In some battles, therefore, you might find yourself on the receiving end of an unexpected enemy attack, or being assailed by a surprise counterattack. Investigating the status of enemies, yada, yada, yada. When it comes to enemies who inflict a lot of status elements, probably an outfitter that sells a piece that is negates the ailment. Yeah, that happens. In this game, it's easy to quit or retry battles, so make sure to... So there are fights in this game that are fucking hard. There are fights in this game where it's like, okay, the whole fight revolves around a bridge, and you have to get your team on one side to fight the team on the other, and the only thing connecting is a bridge, or you go the long way up like a waterfall. There are so many maps in this game that are that, where it's like, all right, so what do we do with the team in this situation? And it's hella engaging, dude. It's really, when that shit happens and it goes good, it's friggin' awesome. It's so much fun when your game plan eventually like snowballs and it goes good, great. Oh God, they're dead. You know, finally, it feels so good. What are you most proud about? The fact that even now, many years after the release of the original, Tactics is still loved by so many fans is something to be tremendously proud of. Speaking personally, I'm proud that I was able to work on both the fantastic original game and this one as well. Finally, is there anything you wish to say to all the people excited? Finally being given a new life, set against the backdrop of a military conflict between two royal factions known as the War of the Lions. This game tells the story of the hero Delita and another Ramza Bevul. This game has been designed to delight players and fans of the original, as well as those who will be experiencing Final Fantasy Tactics for the first time. Please check it out. Chat, did you know that Final Fantasy VI 16, the main character goes through 3 generations of his life. That wasn't the first Final Fantasy to do that. That technically was Tactics. Ramza goes through 3 different generations of his life, and there is 3 big like time skips in Tactics. So it's a big part of the game. It spans a very, very long period of time of what the War of the Lions, how long this war goes on for. So to me, that was kind of interesting that it's like, oh wow, 16's doing this thing again. A character goes through 3 big transformations in their lifespan, and they literally grow up throughout the entire game. It's pretty cool.
I can't wait.